So don't get me wrong, losing over 100 pounds in the past 13 months has been amazing and life-changing, but there are so many things that nobody warns you about how your body, brain, and life in general change after losing that much weight. And in today's video, I'm going to go over all the things, from the emotional, from the funny, from the kind of weird things that I honestly don't know if anyone else is experiencing as well. So let's get into it. Hi, if you're new here, my name is Betty, and over the past 14 months, I have lost over 100 pounds with the help of Zepbound. And so many of you have been asking about different side effects from losing, 100 pounds in a year. So whether it's loose skin, whether it's hair, whether it's some kind of weird, quirky stuff going on, I am going to cover it all in this video. And number 5 is honestly something that I never in my wildest dreams imagined struggling with after losing weight or in general. So make sure you stick around for that one. Okay, number 1, so many of you ask about this, and it's hair loss. I know I've spoken about this in other videos, but this has probably been the side effect that has affected me the most, because it was something that I personally thought I wouldn't struggle with. I never had issues with my hair. I've always had pretty, dense hair, and it's never been a concern of mine having thin hair. So when I started seeing more clumps coming out in the shower and in my brush and my bathroom floor, I have to vacuum my bathroom floor so often because it will just be covered in my long dark hair. Really attractive. So I was not expecting this, and I was self-conscious about it in the beginking. I'm not as self-conscious about it now because it is growing back, and I think that maybe I've gotten used to the fact that it just feels thinner. But as you know, I don't have any bald spots that I know of anyway. So that's obviously not, as big of a concern. And there were 2 things that were happening in my life when I started Zepbound, which were, I was postpartum, and I obviously, was on Zepbound, started losing weight fairly quickly and a decent amount of weight. So when I looked up what this was, it's called telogen effluvium. It is an actual condition that happens in your body. Not necessarily a condition, but it's a process that happens in our bodies when our bodies undergo some sort of stress. So in the postpartum case, you just had a baby. So yes, your body is stressed out, which causes your hair to go in resting phase. So it's not growing, it's in the kind of dormant phase. And that's why you start seeing your hair shedding more. It's the same thing with weight loss. Your body senses that as a stress, so it does the same thing to your hair. The good news for most people, it does grow back. You could probably see it in the video, but I have a ton of baby hairs. Like these little guys, they're really just so nice looking. When I put my hair up, it's like I have little wings on the side. So it's growing back. It looks a little funny in the growth phase, but it is growing back. And they do say for most individuals that will happen. It can be really jarring when you start to see it happening, regularly in your shower. It is recommended to make sure you're getting enough protein. Your hair needs the amino acids, the building blocks that you get from protein. So again, prioritizing the protein, making sure you're getting enough essential nutrients and enough calories is going to help prevent or lessen the effects of the hair loss. Number 2, loose skin. This is another huge question that I get from a lot of you. When you lose a substantial amount of weight quickly, your body, the skin cannot contract as quickly as the weight is coming off. So yes, there is loose skin. For me personally, my thighs and my butt are the most affected areas. Full transparency, over 10 years ago, I had a tummy tuck and an arm lift. And so those areas are not as bad. My stomach has remained pretty flat. But my thighs and my glutes there's just a lot of loose skin. There aren't many kind of remedies for that other than time and kind of helping your skin bounce back at its own rate, not necessarily the rate that you lost the weight in, and building muscle. So that skin, something needs to take up the place of that loose skin, and building muscle can help with that. there's obviously surgery as well. So that's obviously a very personal choice. That is an expensive option, but it's definitely an effective option. And, you know, I'm not against it at all. You know, I've had it before. So I don't know if I would do it with my legs and my glutes. Maybe, possibly. It just seems like a very intense procedure and a really big undertaking for like healing purposes. And I've got 3 kids, so I don't really know how I would even be able to do that. And here's how I think about loose skin. Bathing suit season's coming up. I just bought a bunch of new bathing suits that I'm actually gonna do a big try on with. So I see, you know, I'm seeing my loose skin in real time every day. And for me, I would much rather be the size that I am, and have the body that I'm in with loose skin on it than be 237 pounds. So for me, it is well worth it. Is it my favorite thing? No. Is there a part of me that's like, hey, you worked so hard, but your body still doesn't look, you know, necessarily like the ideal way you'd like it to? Yes, there is that voice. But at the end of the day, nobody's body is perfect. Everyone has their quirks. Everyone has their insecurities. I'm not going to let the insecurity of having loose skin on my body stop me from partaking in anything that, you know, would potentially show that off or, you know, expose that. So that's my thought process on it. And we all have our own thoughts and opinions and, you know, comfort levels around it. But at the end of the day, your body is healthy. Your body is strong. If you happen to have loose skin or stretch marks or anything that you might not be 100% comfortable with, that's okay. And at the end of the day, also, when you're out and about, no one is focusing on your body. They're all focusing on themselves. I think that's something that we forget. We think, oh, you know, we're walking down the sand to the beach. Everyone's looking at, you know, the wrinkles on my thighs. No, they're not. They're thinking about the wrinkles on their thighs. And so we just have to kind of zoom out and realize that it's not always about us. This next one is one that I have mixed thoughts about. I have different theories about it. So that's your taste buds changing, and things that maybe once tasted horrible to you now taste good, and vice versa. I've had this experience, especially in the beginning, with something like ice cream. I'm sure I've talked about this in another video, but we live very close to the beach. I live in New England. The ice cream season is very short, so people get ice cream a lot in the summer at these little kind of like mom and pop shops. And you know, there'd be days we go to the beach, we go get ice cream afterwards with the kids. It's a normal, you know, a normal day, a normal summer day. But what I noticed was that I didn't have the desire to get any ice cream. I would literally go to the ice cream shop with my kids, and instead of telling myself, you shouldn't have that, and like wanting to have it, but not, I just didn't want it. The desire was gone. So I feel like there are different parts of this. Yes, I do think for some people there is a actual taste bud difference where it doesn't do it for you anymore. But I also think there is a piece of the puzzle where foods can give us a level of satisfaction that's not necessarily from the taste or the mouthfeel or, you know, the yumminess of what we're eating. I think some foods, there's an emotional component where you just feel a sense of satisfaction or a sense of contentment from eating that food. And this is, you know, this is an emotional piece of the puzzle. And I think there's that piece of it as well. I'd love to know, if you want to comment down below, if there are certain foods that maybe were kind of like comfort foods to you before that are no longer giving you that feeling of comfort when you eat them, because I do think that has been a huge shift for me personally while on these medications. Okay, this one, I'm cold all the time. I used to be someone who probably ran hot. I also had, you know, more insulation in my body, but I am cold. I need layers. It'll be, you know, relatively warm outside and I'm still cold. My house, I feel cold. I need socks. I was wearing a jacket in the house the other day. Not like me. So that is something that I was definitely not even thinking about, not on my radar. It's not a big deal, but it's just a funny thing to notice that I am always the chilly one now. Okay, this one is genuinely weird and something that I just don't I don't understand how to deal with it now. I cannot shave my armpits. And I know that sounds so strange. But before, when I lift my arm, there was like a, like a pad of fat almost, or it was just kind of flat. Now there's such an indent there that it's like my razor doesn't fit in the concave part of my armpit. And I know that sounds so strange, but for those of you who have concave armpits, how do you shave your armpit? I just don't, it's so awkward. I look like, I don't even know what I look like in the shower trying to shave my armpits. But that is one thing that you don't really think about being able to shave your armpits or not when you're losing weight, but it's like, I don't know. It's so weird. It is just a strange thing. So there's that. So for those of you who are losing weight and you can still comfortably shave your armpits, I'm warning you in advance. You're going to start like waxing or something because the razor just doesn't fit. It doesn't work. So fair warning, I'm giving you all notice. The next weird quirk of losing 100 pounds, I'm always touching my hip bones. I don't know if anyone else does this, but now that they are, they're out there in the world showing themselves off, I'm always touching them. It's like this new thing to I don't know. It's weird, but I'm sure there are other people out there that you have this new bony structure that you are now discovering exists because there's not a big pile of fat on top of it. So that's one thing. I feel like I'm always touching my hip bones. Yeah, another quirk. Also related to the boniness piece of it, it doesn't feel as good to sit down. I sat down on my porch the other day and I was like, oh, okay, that feels different. There's not as much cushion, and that's a good thing, but it's also, gosh, for so long I've lived with a built-in padded seat that I take everywhere with me. So now that padded seat is not as padded, it's something to be aware of, and it's not as comfortable when your little bone hits the ground underneath you. Next up, shoes. They just do not fit the way they used to. Some, fortunately, fit me now because they did not fit my wide feet before. Others are now too big. So I need to get new sneakers because my foot is just so much more spacious inside of my sneakers. And I had experienced this through my pregnancies. My feet grew during pregnancies. They never really got back to where they were pre-pregnancy, but now, my feet are thinner. They are just smaller. They don't take up as much space in my shoes. So another thing to be aware of, you may need to buy new shoes after losing a lot of weight. Okay, the next three are more on the kind of emotional side of things. We've gone through the kind of weird, quirky stuff, and now we're going to shift gears to some emotional stuff. Let's chat about body dysmorphia because that is a real piece of large weight loss. Your body undergoes a huge transformation in a relatively short amount of time, and your brain just is not able to catch up. It's not able to move in real time as your body is changing. So there will be some days where I look in the mirror and I feel closer to my old self than I do to my new self. I just feel bigger. That's what I see in the mirror. Then there are days when I look in the mirror and I see what I actually look like now, a much smaller version of myself. And I think as time goes on, the brain gets this new dose of reality. So it starts to, come on board fully, but it takes time, and that's okay. There are still times where I will put on a pair of pants. I'm like, these aren't gonna fit. And they'll be like big in the waist. And the connection just isn't always there. And so that is definitely a big piece of the puzzle. And I think as you're losing, it can mess with your head. And so just being aware of that and also letting yourself pause and not freak out and not panic, just notice that your brain is taking a little while to catch up. This next one is about how people treat you differently after you've lost weight. And this comes in a few different ways. One, after losing 100 pounds, before I felt pretty invisible in my body. really feel like I was out in the world, but I wasn't really noticed. And now after losing weight, I'm treated differently. I'm looked at differently. And I can tell that, whether it's someone, just smiling and whatever, being kind, or if it's, a man kind of like looking at you and smiling and kind of checking you out. This can be uncomfortable at times, but in a way it also feels kind of good. I have worked hard. I am proud of my body. I do feel like I look good and I feel, beautiful. So to be getting that back, whether it's in comments or whether it's just in the way people look at you, I don't know. I personally, I kind of like that. It's also nice to know, like, you've still got it. Like, people still are thinking that you're, the cat's meow. And there's also the different energy and attention that you might be getting from people who know you and that are in your circle, whether it's your spouse or your family or your friends. When you go through a large transformation, that can make some people uncomfortable. It can make some people they'll just make comments, whether it's you're done losing weight, right? Or, you're looking too skinny, even just making kind of like backhanded compliments. And you know what? That's about them. It has nothing to do with you. It has nothing to do with where you want to go, where you want to take your body and your health. That decision is up to you and you alone. And people might have their opinions about it, and that's okay. They're only their opinions, and those opinions don't really matter. And I think there's almost a double standard here, because if you saw someone who was always, 125 pounds and, 5'6", say, you maybe wouldn't think about them. Maybe they were fit, they're like athletic build. You wouldn't necessarily think of them and say, okay, like you need to gain weight or you're too skinny. You might just think, okay, they're, an athletically built individual. But when you see someone who has gone from, 200 pounds to 125 pounds and maybe has a similar figure to the person who's always been that weight, for some reason, people feel like they have the authority to make a comment on where your body should be, what your body should look like. And I don't understand that. I really don't understand. That's like with pregnant women. I feel like when you're pregnant, people just feel like they have the ability to say whatever they want. Oh, like, just wait, you're not going to sleep. Or, oh, you must be having twins. I don't understand what about those situations allows people to think that they can say these things and it's not going to be offensive or it's not going to be inappropriate. So again, your body and where you want to take it, building muscle, losing fat, obviously within a healthy, realm, it's up to you. I've had people say, oh, you're done losing weight, right? Maybe I'm not. Maybe I want to take off more fat and I want to build more muscle and I want to look more sculpted. There's nothing wrong with that. That is 100% okay. And I don't need anyone else's approval to decide if that's what I want to do or not. And neither do you. And one of the beautiful things about these medications is that for so many of us, they finally open up that realm of possibility to be able to take our bodies further than we thought we ever could. I never thought in a million years I'd ever be able to fit into a size 4. It was never on my radar. It was for other people, it wasn't for me. Well, these medications have changed that. And so now I can reassess my goals. What do I want to become? How do I want to, build my body? Could I potentially be someone who has visible muscle definition? I never thought I could be in the past, but I think I have that ability now and I'm working towards that. So keep that in mind as well, that the kind of old stories that we told ourselves of this is what our goal weight should be, or this is where I think I can be, maybe that is, and maybe that's where you end up and you choose, that is 100% your prerogative. Also, maybe you want to shift that because the medication's effect on your biology is helping you to go to a place you maybe did not think you could go before. I saved this one for last because I think it's one of the most important but it's also one of the least talked about pieces of this transformation. And that is the belief that when we hit a certain weight or a certain size or a certain goal, that we will feel a certain way. And in some ways, yes, your body changes and you do feel, maybe it's a sense of pride, you feel healthier, you feel more vibrant, more energetic. But if there was a void that you were trying to fill by losing weight, chances are that void is still going to be there when you lose the weight. I remember talking about this in one of my videos when I reached 135. That was a big number for me. It was a number that I'd never been before. And I talked about how I stepped on the scale that morning. I saw 135 and nothing changed. I felt the same as I did the day before and the day before that. We put so much stake and we put so much importance on hitting these certain numbers, thinking, okay, when I get to this, I will feel this, or I will be able to do this when I get to this. That's not always the case. And in most cases, it's not the case. So the anxiety, the hard relationships, the stressful piece at work, all of those things will still be there when you are at your goal weight. The real work is putting in the time to work through those things while you're losing weight. And I think for a lot of us, we spend years and years and years tying our worth to our weight. We tie how valuable we are to a number on the scale. Not everybody, but I do think a lot of people have struggled with that. But the thing is, if you do not work on the mindset and the emotional piece behind that, you will still be looking for a sense of worthiness and value when you eventually hit that weight on the scale or that size. And I know I've talked about this piece before. When you start to go into maintenance, there's another piece of the puzzle. There's another thought process of, who am I now when I'm no longer identifying myself by the struggle of weight loss? If losing weight has always been something that you've identified with, it's always been something that has been part of your drive and your purpose, it's always in the back of your mind, I gotta lose weight. That's part of your identity. When you lose the weight, that identity needs to be filled up with something else. A new identity has to be chosen. And that's not easy work. That's uncomfortable work. That's deep work, but it is important work to do because so much more than our body changes on this journey. And I can speak from that firsthand. So maybe keep tabs on that. Maybe ask yourself, am I expecting to feel a certain way when I hit a certain goal? What kind of way is that? Is it, like I'll finally be able to go after that promotion when I've lost weight? I think the confidence to go for that promotion or to go for whatever it is that you're thinking about doesn't come from the number on the scale. It comes from the trust that you've built in yourself over the past however many months, years, showing up for yourself every single day to create the results that you have. It doesn't come from that number. It comes from the behavior that you have exhibited to get to that number. That's where our trust comes from. That's where our confidence comes from, because we are showing ourselves, you can trust yourself. You can show up for yourself. You can have a goal and reach it. And I truly think we get it mixed up. I think we think the number, the result is going to give us the confidence, but it's the journey that we took to get to the result that actually builds that confidence. I like to use the example of starting a new workout routine. Say you are embarking on a weight loss journey, you have 50 pounds to lose, and you want to start working out. I can tell you that after the first 2-3 workouts, you're already going to feel the feeling of success and of pride, not because you maybe have lost a couple pounds or not. It's the behavior that you're doing that is giving you that emotion. So if we want to feel a certain way, we can feel that way now by implementing certain behaviors today and tomorrow and the next day and beyond. And when those behaviors add up, That is what creates the result. So maybe you're not at your goal weight. Maybe you've been struggling lately with the scale maybe not moving as quickly as you would like it to. I want you to ask yourself, what habits have you been doing, regardless of what the scale says, that have been proving to yourself that you're showing up for yourself, that you are taking care of yourself? Look at those habits, look at how they make you feel, and I want you to hold on to that feeling rather than the feeling that you get when maybe things are moving more slowly, because that we can't control. We cannot control how quickly the scale moves, but we can let the scale control how we feel. We don't want to do that. We want to take control of our emotions. We can take control of our behaviors, and through those behaviors, those will impact the way that we feel. Because I don't want to be miserable on this journey. I want to enjoy this journey. Yes, do you want to enjoy the final product? Of course. But that final product is never really final either. Like we're always on a journey. It just is changing and evolving and looks different every single day. But focus on the things that you're doing that are making you healthier, that are making you stronger, that are making you happier. Those are the things that are not only going to help you lose weight, they're also the things that are going to help you build joy and build a more full life throughout the process. So that's my list. The hair, the loose skin, the weird armpit shaving thing, the bony hips and the uncomfortable sitting. All of these things are things that I've experienced, and I'm curious, which of those things have you experienced? Because I would love to know and love to share that we are not alone in this. And please, if you are someone who has a hard time shaving your armpits now, please let me know and tell me how to do it, because it is the most awkward thing on the planet. Okay guys, that's it for today. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe, comment down below. Again, what weird, quirky thing have you noticed on your weight loss journey? And if you know someone who's also on their weight loss journey who might benefit from hearing some of these weird and quirky things that happen as you lose weight, I would love it for you to share with them. Again, thank you so much for watching. And don't forget, if you are on this journey and you are looking for some guidance, a roadmap to simplify the process and not only lose weight, but gain health on a GLP-1, you can download my free guide below, and I will see you guys next time.